Hey there, TJ Denzer here, Senior News Editor for Shacknews.com, coming at you with another gameplay synopsis. This time I played Wuchang Fallen Feathers. This game comes to us from Lin Z and is published by 505 Games. Lin Z is a Chinese developer, and as far as I can tell, this is their developing debut, and it's a pretty good one. Wuchang is a Souls-like action RPG. It takes place in the fantastical take on the ancient Shu land around the time of the Ming Dynasty. In this version of the world, there is a creature that went around and if it doesn't kill people, it leaves them with a terrible disease called the feathering, in which feathers sprout from their body, make them lose their memories, make them eventually lose their minds, and eventually they turn into a man-eating monster. And you play a character named Wuchang who is afflicted with this curse. And somehow she's been able to keep her mind, though she has lost her memories. And so you go on a journey to figure out who you are, where you came from, and also maybe help stop the monsters and end the feathering. So, this game, as it said at the top, is a Souls-like action RPG. That means lots of combat. Combat is a bit tough, even with normal enemies. But it's also like pretty free form when it comes to exploration. You get to choose a lot of the different playstyles. You start out with a longsword, which is like a really long sword, and it's a pretty good weapon right from the get-go to get things going. You have big, slow strikes. You have some fast kicks and some sweeps. And one of the things that stood out to me about combat in this game right away is that Wuchang doesn't have like a dedicated blocking or parry button, as is often the case in these games. Instead, every weapon has its own like normal, like light attacks, heavy attacks, charged heavy attacks, and then each weapon has a discipline skill, which is like set to a class of weapon, and then its own unique skill. So if a weapon doesn't have the ability to block, then you can't block. You have to just dodge and move around enemies and not get hit. There are several different classes of weapons in this game. There are long swords, there's a short sword, which is like conducive to a magic build in the game. There is a spear that is good for a long-range engagement. There is axes, which are like the heavy, burly weapon of the game. Dual swords, which are like the super fast weapon in the game. And then there are spells throughout the game that you can equip regardless of what weapon you use. There are weapon classes like the short sword that are more conducive to magic builds, but like as far as like magic goes, you can use any spell as long as you have a certain resource to use them. And that takes us to another thing in the game. There, as a character that's afflicted with the feathering, Wuchang has this thing called Skyborn Might, where if she dodges an attack at the right time, she'll collect a Skyborn Might point, and those are essentially her magic points. She starts with 1, and then you can quickly upgrade to have a capacity of 3 of them at a time, and every spell and every discipline move and every special unique move uses these Skyborn Might points. At a certain point you get a Starlight like sort of spell that just fires off 2 quick shots. That only uses 1 Skyborn Might point. Whereas like later in the game you get this thing, it's like a fire mask spell, and that thing does more damage, but it also costs 2 Skyborn points to use. And the point being, like, you have to use evasive moves and certain like qualities of the weapons that give you Skyborn Might points to keep your points up and be able to use spells and skills. And I think that's a really cool methodology to offense and defense in this game, because it challenges you to take risks or else you can't access like the best moves in your arsenal. And each weapon has like a skill tree where you can put points into it as you collect like the soul currency in the game, which is this time called Red Mercury. That's what you use to not only level up but also buy stuff from different merchants in the game. When you level up a skill tree on a weapon, you actually you get like buffs which will allow you to get more Skybound points in addition to being able to do different attacks and buff your stats. So, going to like the visuals and story of this game, I think it's a kind of cool, if not stark, story about fantastical and mythological ancient China. If you know about the Dynasty Warriors series or other stuff like that, or Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you probably know about Shu, which is one of the 3 kingdoms, and this game is sort of like dipping into a very, very different part of that lore, as well as like the mythological stories and fables that go around it. I like the feathering story, even if it makes for a very stark backdrop. The land that you travel through is like beautiful, and there are nooks and crannies in every direction, full of secrets that are kind of rewarding to explore. I often found myself like almost paralyzed by choice when I would come to a path in this game, because like there would be 2 to 3 different routes and I could go in any different direction, and it could lead to just a small path that has a treasure in it, or it could lead to an entirely different area that was like had its own boss and challenges and biomes in it. And the biomes themselves are just like really dope. You start out in like a beautiful mountainous forest countryside with like temples and ruined villages around it. You make your way into an underground sort of like tunnel that's just full of gore and creatures, and oh my god, the worst kind of creatures. There's a lot of different cool enemies in this game. I will say that the environments are much better realized than the characters themselves at times. I feel like the character models are a little bit oddly robotic looking. And the only reason I bring that up is because when you're dressing, when you're looking directly at Wuchang, when you have the camera turned around to face her, I was changing out her armor and I came back from the screen, and if you're looking at her, sometimes she'll just look up at you at the camera, which is a little odd to me, but it's also the way I noticed that like the faces in this game are like robotic and doll-like. Strangely so for a PS5 game. It's a small thing, because how often are you going to be looking at faces in a fast-moving action RPG? But the fact that it was almost emphasized to me made me notice it on other characters as well. And granted, like, you face a lot of monsters in this game, and the cutscenes, these characters look great in the cutscenes. So I was a little surprised to see the actual models and gameplay look a little bit less than I expected. Because otherwise, the game looks great, especially in action, and it flows well too. As far as like the progression systems go, I mentioned the skill trees before, but also like there's a lot of different stuff to be able to upgrade yourself in this game. You eventually unlock these different like mods that you can put on weapons that you can equip with different amulets. It's called Benediction, and you can make a weapon even stronger than it is. Like I liked using the short sword because I ended up delving deep into a magic build. But I was able to also take this Benediction thing and find like amulets that were... I found something that upped magic and also increased my defense when getting Skybound points. So that ended up helping me a lot. Like, being able to find those amulets that fit to a weapon and fit to your playstyle is pretty fun. And even some of them like have certain like... they're sets. So if you're able to find amulets that like match up with each other, you can get an even stronger effect on them, such as like... I don't know, when you kill enemies, you get health back or something. There are a lot of different things to choose from, and you can kind of build your playstyle or augment your playstyle based on that. There's also these needles that you get in certain points that they're acupuncture needles, like stone and blood needles, where once you unlock them, there's a part on the tree where you can use those to like build even another aspect to your playstyle. Because basically the needles are a one-time buff that you can use to either like put an elemental effect on your weapon, like poison or fire. Or, in my case, I found that there was a slot in the tree that if I used the needle to buff myself, it buffed my magic spells for a little bit. And then you can do things like buff the amount of times that you can use the needles and all that stuff. So all that to say that between the weapons, the Benediction mods, the needles, and everything in this, like the skill tree, there's a lot of different ways to play this game. I'm not entirely sure how easy or hard it would be to play any given style. I ended up falling into the short sword magic build because one of the first short swords that you get in this game gives you an ability that allows you to just do a dodge and then put a talisman on yourself that makes you automatically dodge an attack and get a spell point back. So like, I was having a blast, like, dodging through enemy flurries and then getting away from them and hitting them with my hardest hitting magic. And then but there are, like, different things you can do, because at a different point of the game, I was using the spear, which has a counterattack ability on it that fills your points if you land it at the last second. And then, like, one of the spears I had allowed me to do, like, these flame tornadoes on enemies that would twist them around, do fire damage, and then hit with them with, like, a flurry of attacks. So I was impressed with the sheer amount of options you could do in this game as far as combat goes, and finding each new weapon like made me want to play with it for at least a little bit. And you can do that easily because the game lets you reset your skill points and respend them like as for free. You don't have to like lock into a certain decision and then you stick to that for the entire game. You can actually refund your skill points and change them around and try different things, which I did frequently. And I like that you can do that too because it allows you to experiment on the same playthrough instead of being trapped into whatever you've chosen. So yeah, Wuchang, pretty dang good. The one other thing I would take off besides the graphics and the character models, and that's specifically the character models because a lot of this game, like in action and the scenery, looked great. But one other thing I would take off is that, like, I don't know if I like the enemy feedback when it comes to combat in this game. Like, most of the enemies just do not flinch when you swing on them, even with big weapons sometimes. Even with little enemies, I would swing on them and they would tank right through my attacks, and it's like, I get why the big enemies would tank my attacks, but even little enemies were doing it. And I mean, like, the axe is like the biggest weapon in this game, and that alleviates that a little bit because it's got such hard hits. But I wish the game had a little bit more like physical feedback. I wish the hits felt more impactful, I guess is what I'm trying to say, instead of enemies tanking my hits and like the only way I know that I'm like doing damage is because they have a meter of their head with like life. But outside of that, Wuchang is a pretty dang good Souls-like action RPG. I love the amount of options it has. I love the spin on Chinese lore. The feathering is a terrifying looking affliction, but it's also cool. And like the monsters that it makes are ridiculously graphic. I liked the creature design. I liked the boss design in this game, the way that they took that feathering concept and like made a lot of different interesting monsters and fable creatures around it. And yeah, the action is good for the most part. Like the options are great, the progression is great, and the environments are interesting, beautiful. They're fun to explore. So yeah, Wuchang Fallen Feathers. Check it out. And if you want to see more, head over to Shacknews.com. Be sure to check us out on socials, check us out on YouTube, and stay tuned for more. This has been TJ Denzer, and we'll see you next time.